And if talking about the old days, don't you get tired of every year around April and May, people want to talk to you about the home run that Hank Aaron hit off you?
No, I enjoy it for two reasons. It was a pleasure to be a part of that era. And secondly, it gives some credit to him because he had been the forgotten man for a long time.
That was your first start that year.
It was my first start that year, but remember, my record against the Braves up until that year was 9-0. A lot of people didn't think I could pitch in the National League because I no longer had my fastball. But they don't realize, baseball is a game, when you get older, you get wiser, but some of your skills you lose, but you have the smarts.
How aware were you of the home run, of the record, first pitch of the game?
I was aware of it when I was warming up because they had already told me that when he hits the home run, not if, when he hits the home run, walk off the mound because there's going to be a brief ceremony. And the ceremony lasted about 45 minutes, I think.
Wait a minute. They told you when he hits the
When he
home
hits
run,
the
not
home run.
if he
When
hit
he
the
hits
home
the home
run.
run, there's going to be a brief ceremony.
Didn't that anger you?
No.
How did you just block that out? Because you're talking about how long you've been in the league, you've been cool, calm, and collected, but still there is this bigger story that's hanging over everybody's head about the home run.
I think there was a very wise man who picked me for that situation, and his name is Walter Alston. And a lot of people don't realize that year I was mostly in the bullpen. I think I had a 5-6 record, and yet he also picked me to start the third game of the World Series that year because of my experience. And he knew that I wouldn't get rattled under conditions like that.
How did you block it out of your mind?
I just said, I know when Henry comes up, I know his routine. He walked to the home plate. He never had his helmet on. He always had his helmet in one hand, the bat in the other hand, and he dragged the bat. And when he got to the batter's box, he stopped. He put the bat in between his legs, put the helmet on, and stepped into the batter's box, and the umpire knew it's time to play.
It's kind of funny because you knew everything about him, but how meticulous he is or was when he stepped into the batter's box, you knew that and still know that today.
Well, he knew that about me also, because I remember he said that something about, well, I knew you were going to give me something good to hit, because that's the way I always pitched to him. The one thing I didn't want to do is get behind him 2-0, 3-1, because then I would become more predictable. But you learn that over years, and no matter who the adversary might be, you learn how you pitched against him, whether he had success or not.
Can you take me through his first at bat, pitch by pitch?
Yes. The first time he came up, we had a man on first, and my mind was that, okay, I can't give him anything up and in because he's quick, and he's like a rattlesnake. Bam, he's on it. So I said, I want a double play. So the best way to get a double play, throw fastballs low and away, and my fastball ran away from him. And being the wise old hitter he was, he just waited for my good pitch, and I walked him on 4 pitches, and they booed me almost like, to Savannah. But I said, I'd rather walk him and not get the double play than give up the 2-run homer.
That's amazing. They booed you because he walked.
Oh, yeah, well, they came to see him hit a home run. Remember, the Braves were not. That was their 8th year, I think, in being in Atlanta. So we really was still a football town. And they weren't keen on baseball. And this was the biggest thing that happened in Atlanta in baseball. And, I think he had like 40-some thousand people there to come see a game. And remember, they played against the Mets in the '69 playoffs, and they never sold out. And here this one night, they were selling out just to see him hit that home run. They sold these little scorecards saying I was there when Henry hit number 715.
All right, take me to the inning when history was made.
The same situation. I said, listen, I got a 3-1 lead, and it's the 4th inning, and I'm going to just go and try to get that double play again. The first pitch, I throw almost in the dirt.
Did you get booed for that?
Oh, the boos started coming, right? So I said, okay, now I got to give him something, out over the plate, but down. And when I let go of the ball, I said, oh, because instead of being out over the plate down, it was like right in the center of the plate, belt high. And he doesn't miss those. He never missed those pitches, never.
And you knew immediately.
When Henry hits those line drives, sometimes they had topspin, and I said perhaps he's going to have topspin and hit the fence. And Buckner tried to jump over the fence. I said, oh, that's not topspin.
It's amazing how you can laugh about it now.
I laughed about it then. I mean, the game was still only in the fourth inning, and that really tied the game 3-3. But one of the things that's overlooked, we had 3 rain delays in that game. And we had 2 before he hit the home run, and we had 1. I left the game at that inning. I never got through the fourth inning. And so I'm in the clubhouse. We got into the fourth inning ended, I think, at 11 o'clock, somewhere around there.
Did it seem like it took him forever to round the bases?
No. Henry, he had the same gait all the time. He was never running fast around the bases. He had that little lope around the bases. And the only thing that was different was the 2 fellows who came and caught him at second base. And that was different. And I'm also, oh, who are these guys, you know? They're 2, overzealous young men. And but Henry just kept on going. But what was interesting, Garvey shook his hand, Lope shook his hand. I said, wait a minute, guys, the game's not over yet. Do that stuff tomorrow.
It's really kind of amazing. And I'm wondering, what was going through your mind when all of this was going on, when he was rounding the bases and there's all that noise, and you see your teammates patting him on the back and congratulating him?
Well, it's something about business, I guess, the business of the game. I think you see that in your sport and football. A guy sets a milestone, guys shake him. Hands. It doesn't interrupt the activity. You still know who wears what uniform. And it's just kind of like acknowledging a tremendous feat. And, to get back there next time you hit a ground ball, you better hurry up because I'm going to throw you out, So, you expect that.
One of the things that I really have admired about you and listening to you talk about that particular moment is for a long time you referred to him as Mr. Aaron.
He was Mr. Aaron. The first time I met Henry was in 1964, and they had come over to West Palm Beach. They had been in Bradenton, I think. And they had come over to West Palm Beach to train, and we were in Fort Lauderdale. And Elston Howard was my mentor and my father confessor, my big brother. And he said, come on, I want you to meet someone. This is spring training. We're in a game. And we walk over across the field. He said, Henry, this is Al Downey. He said, oh, you're the young left-hander they're talking about. And that's the first time I met him. And I never forget his words. They were talking. They're like guys that played against one another for years. And he says to me, he says, look, anything you want to know about the game, anything around this business, give me a call. We'll talk anytime. I never forgot that.
Why would he do that?
Because he was a great man. And he was an ambassador, and he was the type of guy who wanted to give some kind of guidance to the younger players coming up. Make sure you were on the right road, right path, and knew what you had to do. What I always enjoyed doing was in Easter weekend, because we were on the East Coast, and the Orioles were in Miami, we were in Fort Lauderdale, the Braves were in West Palm, and the Senators were in Pompano. So we're like right in here, like this here. So when Easter weekend came, all the East Coast teams went to the West Coast and stayed in hotels and played all the games against the teams over there. And we in Tampa, we would stay together. Well, we would eat together. We wouldn't stay together. We couldn't eat in hotels, so we would go and eat in the colored section, and we'd eat. And then after dinner, we'd stand around, and I'd hear guys like Bob Thurman and Al Smith and Elston Howard and Henry Aaron talk about the game of baseball. And these guys were like, our mentors, the ambassadors. And they talk about the game. And I'm a young kid, I'm listening. I got nothing to say. I want to hear what they have to say. And it was invaluable, Jim, because you don't know anything. Sometimes you think you know a lot, but you don't know much. And you learn as you go. And it's no better way to learn than to hear these fellows talk about the game.
Then there's the story that the next day, Mr. Aaron wanted to talk to you.
Mr. Aaron sent the clubhouse kid over to our locker, to our clubhouse, and said, "Can you ask Al if he can come out?" And he was standing behind the cage, and he said, "Come on." He said to me, he shook my hand. He said, "Don't feel badly about that." He says, "It's been a long time, and it's a long record. Took a long time, and you're still a good pitcher, and you're going to have a great career." And So it wasn't something I had my head down about. Maybe if it had been my second, third year, it might have been. But I had already pitched in 2 World Series at that, and had been on 3 World Series teams. So I had gone through a lot. But it was nice that he did that. It really was, and I really appreciated that. There were a lot of things that went on and went through my mind, and I think one of the biggest things was my dad was no longer with us, and I lost him in '70. And he was always a big Dodger fan, big Giant fan, and Willie Mays, Henry Aaron, he loved those guys, and for him to have seen me play against them, he would have loved that. Yeah, he would have loved that.
I mean, but how gracious of him after making history the night before, when he could have been standing around having press conferences and walking around the field and waving to the crowd and all of those things, he wanted to talk to you.
I think a lot of it too is he wanted people to see that there was no animosity between the two of us, and that there was still that respect as an adversary. And sometimes you get the bear, sometimes the bear gets you. And I'll never forget, in 1984, we had a recreation in the old Fulton County Stadium. And we were sitting at a luncheon table, and I was sitting next to him, and he and I were just talking, and we're both retired. And one writer says to me, he's standing up like in front of the table, he says, "Hey Al, Henry wore you out, I bet he hit a lot of home runs off you." And Henry never would let a guy do that to any ball player. And he said, "No," he says, "Al, how many I hit off you? 3, was it 3 or 4? He knew. He knew that I knew.
Yeah.
and I said, "No, it was 3. It was 3, Henry. It was 3. He said, "Yeah." He said, "Al's a good pitcher." He said, "No, hey, I hit a lot of home runs off a lot of pitchers. It doesn't take anything away from that pitcher's ability. We're all in the major leagues."
So you recognize your place in history. You relish your experience in the major leagues. You call him Mr. Aaron, and you don't mind talking about this every year.
Not at all. I enjoy having time to talk with you, Jim, because I remember when you first came to town, and everybody was saying, "Oh, who's this guy? Who's Jim Hill?" Nobody knew who Jim Hill was, but you made them know who you were by your work and by your work ethic, and it's proven by how long you've been around here.
And you know where I got it from? I got it from a few people. You. I remember talking to you about that very thing, and about what to do, but more important, what not to do. I also remember you saying, "You know what? There's going to be some missteps. There's going to be stuff that's happened, but just keep on forging ahead." And that's what you did in that game. That's what you've done in your life, and that's one of the reasons why people call you Gentleman Al Downing.
Well, thank you, and I appreciate you really inviting me for this time and get on the air and talk a little bit. I really appreciate that, Jim.
Because I was thinking, a lot of times when a player is a part of history, but on the wrong side, he didn't want to talk about it. He didn't want anybody to mention it to him. He wishes it would go away. But with you, it's almost like you embrace that.
What I really am most proud of, and I told my nephews this, because one of my oldest brother has these 2 kids, and I guess they were about 8 or 9, and one day they're watching these highlights, and they were showing the '67 All-Star game, and the announcer said, "Now Al Downing from the Yankees is coming in to pitch." And one of his sons says, "Hey, Dad, what's Uncle Al doing playing with all those great players?" But it makes you feel good, though, that they acknowledge that there is a difference, but we're all good. We're all trying to do the best we can. And you have respect for that game. You have respect for the people in the game. And that's what makes it so much fun. And the people you meet along the way. And there's going to be so many of them.
And the respect and admiration you have for Mr. Aaron,
yes,
will last a lifetime.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. Yes. Yeah. And we still have the guy up north. He's still with us. He just had his 90th birthday, Willie. People don't know. I saw Willie when he was 19 when he came to Trenton. And that was the first time he had come into organized baseball with the Giants. And nobody knew what kind of player he was going to be. I mean, he's 19, running around the field, Next year, he's playing in Polo Grounds, So, wow, it happens like that.
There'll never be, the likes of an Al Downing shall never pass our way again.
I've always said, I have had the good fortune of playing in New York with great players and playing with great players in Los Angeles. And the most fun, I wouldn't say the most fun, but the one time I had really a lot of fun where guys really laughed a lot was a half year I spent in Milwaukee in 1970, because I was really down. I had been traded from the Yankees to the A's, and then the A's traded me to Milwaukee, and I'm thinking, where do I go next, you know? And now I'm on the team where we had guys like Ted Savage and Hank Allen and Tommy Harper, and those guys were like tremendous sources of inspiration, because we were all in the same boat, came along at the same time, and we knew this was our last hurrah. And yet we didn't let it bother us. We went on that field, we played as hard as we could, and again, it's who you have playing with you that determines how much success your team is going to have. It's not a one-man game.
Boy, sitting here talking to you is like talking to history. You know what? Elephants come to you when they forget stuff, don't they?
Yeah, that's why I keep those peanuts in my house.